There are roads in the American South where the trees grow too close, where radios go silent, and where headlights dim for no reason at all. Ask any seasoned highway patrol officer down there, and they'll tell you. Some stretches of asphalt hold secrets darker than the night sky above them. In tonight's video, we dive into 10 of the creepiest true highway patrol horror stories from the South. Real encounters with things that can't be explained. Before we begin, hit that like button. It helps this story reach more horror lovers just like you. Comment below where you're watching from. Every viewer here is part of my horror family, and I want to know where my family is tuning in from. And after you watch, tell me which story chilled you the most. And of course, subscribe. Your support helps this channel keep bringing you terrifying tales that most people are too afraid to tell. I've been with the Watauga County Sheriff's Office for going on 13 years now. Boone, North Carolina might seem like a quiet little town nestled up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, but once you get out past the tourist spots and hiking trails, the roads twist into places the GPS barely acknowledges, and the dark settles in thicker than you'd expect. It was late October when I got the call. Dispatcher flagged it as routine wildlife removal, a supposed animal carcass out on Old Jonas Ridge Road, right near mile marker 42. That stretch of road is remote, the kind of place where trees press in on both sides and the guardrails are mostly rusted suggestions. No houses, no cell signal, and no lights except for your own high beams bouncing off the mist and brush. What caught my attention, though, wasn't the carcass. It was the note tagged on the call log. Multiple 911 hangups, same coordinates past 2 hours, 3 separate calls. No one stayed on the line, no follow-ups. Just the same ping from that same lonely spot out there in the woods. I radioed in before heading out. Dispatch said they'd tried calling the number back, but it kept ringing until voicemail. They wrote it off as a couple teens pulling pranks, maybe messing with a deer or bear that got clipped by a passing truck. I didn't think much of it either, until I got there, and there was no carcass. I pulled up just after 11:30 p.m. The night was dead quiet. No wind, no insects, no hum of traffic from the distant highway, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums. My spotlight swept the shoulder. No animal, no blood. Just disturbed gravel and tire grooves like someone had pulled off in a hurry. Then I saw the scratches. The guardrail on the east-facing curve had deep gashes in it, 3 of them, long, parallel, and angled down like claws. Not scrape marks from a bumper or fender. These were torn into the metal like something raked across it with force. I crouched down to run my hand across one of them. The edges were jagged, some bits curled outward. Fresh, maybe a few hours old. That's when I heard it. A whistle. It came from the woods behind me, low, almost lazy. The kind of whistle someone might use to call a dog. But it wasn't a tune. It was a single drawn-out note. High, then low, then silence. I spun around, flashlight raised, hand instinctively dropping to my holster. Nothing. Just black trees and underbrush. Sheriff's Department, I called out. If anyone's out there, make yourself known. No reply. I stood there for a long moment, waiting, listening. Then the whistle came again. Same note, same distance, but from the opposite side of the road now. I backed toward my cruiser, keeping my flashlight sweeping in slow arcs. My hand was on my radio mic when something moved just beyond the beam, quick, low to the ground. I couldn't get a good look at it, but it had weight. The leaves shifted like something heavy was pacing me, just past where the light could reach. Got in the car. I locked the doors, and I sat there, engine idling, eyes on the tree line. The whistling started again, now circling. First behind me, then to the right, then ahead, always out of sight, always just beyond the edge of the light. I hit the dash cam manually, saving the last 10 minutes of footage. If nothing else, I wanted a record in case this was someone messing with me. And yeah, maybe I was being paranoid, but you spend enough time on back roads at night, you learn to listen to your instincts. I radioed dispatch. No carcass found. Scratch marks on the rail, something's off, requesting backup unit. Static, and I checked the unit number and tried again. Still static. The signal must have dropped. Happens out here. I turned off the siren, trying not to draw more attention, and sat still in the dark. And then I noticed the interior lights flickering. The dash display went dim, and in that sudden drop of light, something moved across my windshield. Not a person, not an animal. A shape, a blur. It crossed in front of the cruiser in a flash, and my headlights didn't cast a shadow. But my dash cam caught it. I reviewed the playback on my unit screen. The frame was glitchy, static, dancing along. The edges, but in one freeze frame you could see it. A tall, gaunt silhouette, arms too long. Posture wrong, like its joints bent backward. And the eyes, they were reflective. Not like animal eyes, more like polished glass. I didn't stay after that. I threw the cruiser in reverse and backed out fast until I could make a safe turn. The moment I left that bend behind, the whistling stopped. Just cut off. Dead silence again. When I finally reconnected to dispatch a few miles out, I told them I needed that backup unit to meet me at the highway junction. Told them I'd explain everything in person. Another deputy met me 10 minutes later. Jackson, good guy, ex-Marine. I played him the dash cam. He watched it 3 times. Then he told me something I've thought about every night since. You know what creeps me out? That thing's head turns toward the camera, like it knew it was being watched. The next morning, I went back with a wildlife officer and 2 other deputies. Scratch marks were still there. No sign of tracks, no sign of people. But about 30 yards into the tree line, we found something, not a body, not an animal. A cell phone, screen shattered, case cracked. Logged into an open 911 dial screen. Call never went through. Signal lost. Same timestamp as the first hang-up. I still patrol that stretch sometimes, but I never stop anymore, and I keep my windows rolled up, especially if I hear whistling. Because, whatever that thing was, it wanted me to get out of the car, and something tells me, the people who did get out never made it back. After that night on Old Jonas Ridge Road, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was unfinished, that it wasn't just a fluke, a glitch in the shadows, a mountain trick of the light. I tried to move on, told myself it could have been a coyote with mange or a tall hiker messing with me. I even stopped reviewing the dash cam footage after a while, but something kept gnawing at the back of my head. 2 days later, I found out why. Dispatcher, Mandy flagged me down in the station parking lot after my shift. Her face looked tight, pale. "You need to see this," she said, leading me inside. She had a new 911 hang-up, same coordinates, same damn spot. Only this time, the call stayed connected for 7 seconds. Mandy turned the volume up and hit play. It was faint but unmistakable, breathing, panicked, ragged. Then a low, dragging scrape, like something being pulled over gravel. And finally, clear as day, came the sound of someone whispering, "It's behind me." Then the line went dead. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept picturing the phone we found in the woods. The open 911 screen, the scratches on the guardrail, that tall, warped silhouette caught on my dash cam. It all started stacking up like a weight on my chest. And the thing that really got me? We never found the owner of that phone. No missing person reports had matched it. No one had claimed it. Like whoever made that call didn't exist anymore. The next morning, I went back to the location. Alone. I didn't tell anyone, not my sergeant, not Jackson, not even dispatch. I figured if this was something dangerous, I needed to see it through. And maybe I needed closure. Maybe I was just being stubborn. Either way, I packed my Glock, my flashlight, and an old camping trail camera. From my garage, it was just past 9 a.m. when I parked the cruiser on the same gravel pull-off. The place looked different in the daylight, but not better. The fog was gone, but the trees still leaned over the road like they were listening. The guardrail still bore the claw marks. Nothing had disturbed the dirt around it. I walked 30 yards into the woods, to the spot where we found the phone. Everything felt still, but not peaceful, like the woods were holding their breath. I set the trail cam up on a tree about 5 feet high, facing the slope behind the phone spot. Motion triggered. High resolution. I pointed it directly where I thought the silhouette had moved that night. Then I marked the tree with a strip of orange tape and made a mental note to come back in the morning. But as I turned to leave, I heard it again. The whistle. This time, it was different. Not the lazy, casual note from before. This one was shaky, almost broken, like someone trying to whistle with a dry throat. It came from deeper in the woods, further up the ridge. I should have left right then. Instead, I walked toward it. Maybe 50 yards in, the trees began to thin, and I came across something that stopped me cold. An old trail, barely visible, mostly overgrown, but still walkable. And on a rotted signpost sticking out of the ground was a faded wooden board with a name burned into it, McCrae Logging Camp, Esther 1919. I knew that name. Years ago in training, an older deputy told me about a ghost town up on Jonas Ridge, an old timber crew that supposedly vanished during a snowstorm in the 1950s. People chalked it up to an avalanche or a fire, but no official cause was ever listed. The place was never rebuilt. The trails were closed off. Locals said it was cursed. I thought it was just mountain folklore, but now I was standing in it, and there were tracks in the trail dust, not boots. Bare feet, human, but the stride was wrong, too long, and some of the toes looked off, too splayed, like they bent outward, backed out, fast. I didn't run, but I didn't waste time either. Got back to the cruiser by 10:30 a.m., heart hammering. I left the trail cam, told myself I'd come back tomorrow with backup. This wasn't something I wanted to poke alone again. Back at the station, I logged the site and created a report, but I left out the McCrae camp sign. I wasn't ready to explain that yet, not until I had proof. The next morning I returned. The camera was still there, but the tree it was strapped to? Gouged. 3 long claw marks, same width and spacing as the guardrail. The camera itself was dangling by its strap, lens cracked, memory card missing. But what made my blood turn cold was what was carved into the bark underneath it. 2 words. Rough, uneven, deep. Keep listening. That night I couldn't stop replaying everything in my mind. I didn't sleep. I kept hearing phantom whistles outside my bedroom window, soft, almost inaudible. I lived out near Deep Gap, quiet country property, no close neighbors. I tried to tell myself it was the wind, until my dog started growling at the back door around 2 a.m. When I looked outside, nothing was there. But the motion sensor floodlight had been triggered, and when I checked the porch in the morning, I found a small pile of leaves deliberately placed in a circle. Dead center in the circle was the missing trail cam memory card, wrapped in a strip of orange tape. The same tape I'd used to mark that tree. I didn't put it in my work laptop. Didn't trust that. Instead, I used an old tablet, no internet, completely offline. The footage was jumpy at first, but the cam had captured hours of movement, wind, squirrels, shadows shifting, and then at 2:37 a.m., the motion sensor triggered again. The footage showed a tall shape emerging from behind a tree. Pale limbs, long fingers, no clothes, no hair. The face blurred, either from motion or something else. But the eyes were reflective, not glowing, just mirroring light back like glass marbles. It didn't move naturally. It ticked forward in jerky bursts, and the sound, even without speakers, I could feel it in my gut, low, throaty, like bones grinding underwater. Then it turned to look directly into the camera and its lips parted. It whistled. 1 note. Slow, purposeful. And just before the feed cut to black, its hand reached toward the lens. Not grabbed, just reached. Like it. Knew it was being watched. Like it wanted to say, I see you too. I burned the card the next morning, wrapped it in foil, doused it in lighter fluid, and buried the ashes under a cinder block in my shed. I didn't tell anyone, not even Jackson. The hell would I say? That there's something in the woods that follows sound, that hunts attention, that wants to be noticed? It hasn't shown up since. But sometimes late at night I'll hear a whistle far off in the trees behind my property. Always the same note. Always just once. Like it's reminding me it's still out there. And it's waiting. Even now, I keep the windows shut. Because one night it won't just be whistling. It'll be standing outside my door. And this time, it'll want me to whistle back. Fog does weird things to your mind. Makes you question depth and distance, makes shapes out of nothing. I've driven a rig for over 22 years now. Coast to coast, all seasons, all terrain. And out of all the stretches of road I've come, to know few are as unnerving as that damned patch of Route 23 near Norton, Virginia. They call that stretch the Cut. It's where the highway slices through the side of the mountain, with steep rock walls on one side and guardrails barely holding back the drop on the other. It's always colder there, always a little darker, and it holds fog like a sponge. Even when the sun's blazing on either end, the middle is swallowed in gray. I never liked slowing down there, but that's exactly what I did that morning. It was about 5:20 a.m. I was hauling a reefer load of produce southbound from Pikeville, Kentucky, headed toward Kingsport. I'd driven that route dozens of times, and I was familiar with the dip in visibility through the cut. So when I saw a figure standing dead center in the median, arm raised like she was waving, I figured something was seriously wrong. At first, I thought maybe it was another driver in distress. Maybe someone's car had broken down nearby, though I hadn't seen any hazards or blinkers. But as I got closer, I saw her more clearly, barefoot, thin, wearing a white dress that clung to her like it was damp, though the morning hadn't seen rain. Her hair was dark, long, hanging in wet clumps over her face. Her feet looked raw, like she'd been walking for a while. She wasn't panicked or flailing, just calmly waving, almost slow motion. I passed her in a flash, but something in my gut told me to stop. So I did. Hit the shoulder just past the bend and pulled off, hazard lights on, heart ticking a little faster than I like to admit. I grabbed my flashlight from the dash and stepped out into the damp morning air. The fog was thick enough to muffle sound, and the world felt vacuum-sealed. No birds, no engine hum from distant cars, just silence. I crossed the median cautiously, boots crunching the damp gravel. I called out, "Ma'am, you okay? You need help?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked straight into the fog. Not ran, walked, silently, fast, and without looking back. I followed. I know. You don't go chasing people into low visibility, but something about her. I couldn't leave it alone. It was instinct, maybe guilt. What if she was in danger? What if she needed help and everyone else just kept driving past? But the moment I stepped off the median and into the brush, the temperature dropped. It was instant. My breath came out in visible puffs, and I swear I could feel moisture building on my skin, like the fog was sticking to me. I pushed forward maybe, 15 feet, flashlight beam barely cutting through the thickness. But she was gone. No movement, no white dress, no footsteps. And here's the part that still gives me chills. No footprints, not a single one. The ground was soft and damp. My own. Boots left clear impressions behind me, pressed into the earth and gravel. But where she'd walked, nothing. Like she'd floated. I stood there scanning, turning in slow circles, ears straining for any sound. Then faintly, I heard something. A sigh. Long, low, and close. I spun, light jerking sideways, and caught a glimpse of something slipping behind a tree. Just the tail end of white fabric vanishing. I didn't chase it. Nope. I backed out, returned to the road, and climbed back into my rig faster than I care to admit. I sat there for a moment, breathing, hard, gripping the wheel. I told myself it was just a confused woman, maybe high, maybe unwell, but then I checked the dash cam. I played it back, frame by frame. She was there as I passed. But the moment she turned and stepped into the fog, She vanished. One frame, she's there. The next, empty median. I told myself I'd imagined it. Even left it out when I stopped at a truck stop outside Duffield to grab coffee and refuel. But as I waited for my order, I overheard a guy in line behind me talking to another driver. "She barefoot?" he asked. That word made my ears perk up. The other guy nodded. "Yeah, just standing there in the middle waving. You seen her too?" They both laughed nervously. I turned and asked, "You mean on Route 23? They both looked at me, dead serious now. "Between Norton and the Powell Valley Overlook?" one asked. I nodded. They nodded too. Apparently, I wasn't the first to see her. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake it. That image of her, still waving, vanishing into the mist. I called a buddy of mine, Mike, who used to work for VDOT in the area, told him what I saw cautiously. He didn't laugh. Instead, he said, "You ever check the incident reports out? There?" "What kind of incidents?" "Crashes. There's been a lot over the years, especially right around mile marker 71. Couple of fatal ones, too. Weird part is, they always happen in the fog. So I started digging. I spent the better part of that Sunday going through online newspaper archives and public DOT crash data for Wise County. Took a while to find, but eventually I landed on an article from the Coalfield Progress dated March 3, 2012. Single vehicle rollover young woman. Name, Erin Taylor. Age 26. Local to Norton. Her car had slid in dense fog, clipped the median, and flipped down the embankment. The report said she was ejected through the windshield. She wasn't wearing shoes. They found her body 40 feet from the vehicle, barefoot and wearing a white dress. I stared at her photo for a long time. It was her. The same eyes, same hair, same shape. Only she'd died 11 years ago. I didn't know what to do with that. Couldn't sleep that night. Kept replaying the moment she turned from me, the way she moved through the fog like it didn't slow her down at all. Monday morning, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove back. Same time. Same route. Same fog. Only this time I slowed to a crawl as I approached the median. Nothing at first. No one waving. No white dress. I let out a breath and told myself it was over. But then, as I came around the final curve, there she was, standing still, closer this time, her face fully visible through the fog, and her arm not raised in a wave, but pointing, not at me, at something behind me. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and my heart nearly stopped. A pair of headlights coming fast, no honk, no slowing down, just barreling toward me. I swerved hard into the opposite lane, and the truck shot past, horn blaring a half-second too late. If I hadn't moved, I would have been crushed. When I looked back at the median, she was gone. Again. No footprints. No sign of anyone. Just mist curling over the road like it was swallowing secrets. Back at the truck stop, I checked the dash cam again. And there it was. Same as before. She appears in frame, points, disappears. But this time I saw something else. A reflection in the glass of my passenger side mirror. Not just the other truck. There was a figure sitting in the seat beside me. Long, wet hair covering its face. Head turned toward mine, and just before the footage ends, it lifts its hand and waves. I didn't sleep that night. I left the dashcam footage playing on a loop like my brain couldn't believe what my eyes already knew. Every time that frame came up, her face in the passenger mirror, her hand lifting in that slow, unnatural wave, I felt a cold crawl across my skin, like I was being watched even in my own home. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if she'd saved me or warned me. The next morning I called Mike again, the old VDOT buddy. I didn't bother dancing around it this time. I just asked, "Do you remember a crash back in 2012? Young woman, Erin Taylor?" He went quiet for a second. Then he said, "You saw her again, didn't you?" That stopped me cold. "You're not the first, Travis," he said. We had a plow driver back in 2016 quit on the spot after spotting her standing in the middle of the road. Said she stepped right in front, of his truck, and when he slammed the brakes, she was gone. Gone how? Just not there anymore. No impact. No body. Just tire marks and fog. He paused. She shows up during low visibility, always in the median, always waving or pointing, and she's always barefoot. I asked him what VDOT did about it. Put up signs, added lighting, anything. They tried. Added reflectors, signs warning of sudden fog banks, even talked about widening the shoulder. But the accidents didn't stop, and they could never explain the ones that shouldn't have happened, like yours. Clear road, new tires, good visibility, just outside the fog, but folks still go off. That night I took a detour on my route. Instead of heading toward Johnson City like I planned, I stopped at a diner outside Big Stone Gap and pulled up local maps. I zoomed in on the area around mile marker 71, where Aaron died. And that's when I noticed something odd. Just across from the crash site, deeper in the woods, was a small unlabeled road, barely visible. No name. Just a sliver. I had an idea. Next morning, I parked off the main highway, took a flashlight, a camera, and followed the tree line down that path. It looked abandoned, overgrown, but definitely man-made, and maybe 50 yards in, I found it a roadside memorial, half buried under vines and brush, leaning sideways, a faded wooden cross. A water-damaged photo. The name on the cross was Aaron Marie Taylor, and scratched into the wood beneath it, rough, like done with a rock or key, were the words, "Still here." I stood there for a long time, staring, and then I heard a branch snap behind me. I turned fast, flashlight scanning, nothing. But then I felt it. That pressure in the air, like the fog was creeping in, even though I hadn't seen a single cloud when I parked. The flashlight flickered, and I swear to God I heard gravel crunch, like bare feet. I didn't wait. I turned, fast walked back to the truck, locked the doors, and peeled out of that turnout, as quick as I could without skidding the trailer. My hands were shaking the whole way back to the highway, but it wasn't over. 3 days later, I got a call from dispatch. One of our guys, Joe, a new driver, had wrecked his rig near the cut. He didn't die, but he was in bad shape. Broken ribs, concussion, punctured lung. Said something ran out in front of him. A woman, barefoot. He swerved to avoid her, went through the median and jackknifed. Said she was waving him down 1 second and gone the next. I went to visit Joe in the hospital. He didn't even know I'd seen her too. When I asked what she looked like, he said, "White dress." Wet hair, no shoes, just stood there, man, like she was trying to tell me something. That sealed it for me. She wasn't random. She was active, warning people, saving people, or choosing them. That night, I drove out to the cut one last time. Parked facing the median. Same spot, same hour. Fog was rolling in, thick and slow, hugging the ground. I kept the engine running, headlights off, and waited. At 5:34 a.m. she appeared, not with fanfare, not like a jump scare. She was just there, standing, in the median, motionless, arms at her side. Then slowly she raised one hand. But this time, she didn't wave. She pointed again, right at me. And then, she smiled. That was the first time I felt it. A sharp pressure in my chest, like gravity doubling for a second. My headlights flickered, and in the reflection of my side mirror, I saw her. Again, not in the median, in the passenger seat, face pale, lips parted. This time she whispered, not in my ears but in my head. I don't remember the exact words. It felt like a dream I forgot as soon as I woke, but I remember the meaning. Don't stop in the fog again. Or next time, I won't let you leave. I blinked, and she was gone. The mirror clear. The seat empty. The fog lifting. And I knew. This was her stretch of road now. Maybe she died confused. Maybe she doesn't even know she's gone, but something about her remembers. She's not a ghost in the traditional sense. She's a warning, a choice. She shows you the danger, and then watches to see what you do with it. I still drive Route 23 sometimes, but I never slow down near the cut anymore. I keep my lights on full, my eyes forward, and my doors locked, and I never, no matter what, I see in the fog, stop for anyone waving. Because if I do, I don't think I'll be driving away again. Even now, some mornings I swear I hear her voice in the static on the CB radio, just whispering one thing. Still here. There's a stretch of I-26 between Irwin and Flag Pond, Tennessee, where the road seems to swallow sound. It's only about half a mile long, right near mile marker 239. But everyone in our department knows it, because that's where the radios die, always have. Doesn't matter if it's sunny, storming, winter, summer, soon as you hit that stretch, your comms cut out like clockwork. We used to joke about it, called it the dead zone. Some blamed the ridge line, others said faulty towers. But the joke always stopped short whenever you mentioned what happened to the Miller twins back in '08. They were responding to a fender bender right in that same spot, and only one of them came back. The report said the other one wandered off into the woods, in full uniform, in broad daylight, never found. But I never really bought into that kind of stuff until last December. It was around 3:30 p.m. on a Sunday, just after a freak snowstorm rolled through the mountains. I was riding with a rookie, Isaac Ortiz. Good kid, fresh out of the academy. Still had that excited, ready to make a difference look in his eye. I was breaking him in on the rural patrol routes, and we'd just finished grabbing coffee at a gas station off exit 40 when dispatch came through. Unit 12 got a possible disabled vehicle just past mile marker 239. Caller said it's a black sedan, parked on the shoulder with its flashers on. No response when they passed. I looked over at Ortiz. You ever been to the dead zone? He shook his head, grinning. You mean that part where the radio ghosts live? I laughed. You'll see. We were maybe 10 minutes out cruising, slow through light snow. The sun was already sinking behind the ridgeline, casting long blue shadows across the asphalt. It was that weird winter hour where everything looks like it's glowing but cold as hell. The roads were quiet. Not much traffic that time of day, not on a Sunday. As we approached the zone, the radio popped once, then went silent. Ortiz raised an eyebrow. Dead already? Like clockwork, I said. And there it was. Black Honda Civic. Flashers blinking like a heartbeat in the fog. Parked at an angle, passenger side tires just kissing the snow-covered grass. It looked recently stopped. No damage, no broken glass, no signs of skidding. We parked behind it, lights on low. I stepped out first. The cold hit immediately, thick and heavy. Snow crunched under my boots as I approached the driver's side. Ortiz flanked the passenger door. We cleared it out of habit, hands near holsters. The engine was still running. I knocked on the driver window. Nothing. I tried the door. Unlocked. Inside it was warm. Real warm. The kind of warmth that tells you the heat's been running a while. There was a half-empty Coke bottle in the cup holder, condensation still clinging to the plastic. A phone plugged into the dash charger, screen dark. Purse on the passenger seat. No wallet. No keys in the ignition. But no driver either. And no footprints in the snow. I leaned back out. You see anything, Ortiz? He was frowning at the tree line across the road. No, but it feels like someone's here. That sentence hung in the air. I stepped back and opened the rear door to clear it, just in case empty. Nothing in the footwells, nothing in the seat, except a smear, like someone's palm had pressed against the inside of the fogged window and dragged down. Ortiz saw it too. We looked at each other. It was the first time I saw his expression shift from alert to genuinely uneasy. Let's check the woods, I said. We fanned out, flashlights sweeping through pines and underbrush. Nothing. No prints, no trails, no rustling, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. It wasn't just paranoia either. There was a weight in the air, like the woods had gone still to watch us. The silence out there wasn't peaceful. It was aware. After 15 minutes, we circled back. Ortiz looked pale. His breath came in short puffs, his eyes scanning constantly. You think she walked off? In that? I motioned to the snow. Not without tracks, not barefoot, and not while leaving her purse and phone. He didn't say anything after that, just looked back at the car. I tried the radio. Dead. I knew we had maybe another 10 minutes before the signal came back on the far side of the ridge, so I told Ortiz we'd wait, just in case she comes back. He nodded but stayed quiet. Then, a few minutes later, I noticed he'd opened the rear door and was staring inside, just standing there. Still. I called his name. Nothing. He didn't even flinch. I walked over. Ortiz? His eyes were wide, glassy. His lips moving just slightly, like he was whispering to someone. I stepped closer and heard him. He was saying the same thing over and over, very softly. It was in the back seat. It was in the back seat. It was in the back seat. I grabbed his shoulder. Hey, snap out of it! He blinked, then gasped like he'd been underwater. He looked at me, disoriented. How long was I standing there? I didn't answer, just guided him back to the cruiser and sat him down. A minute later, I heard the static crackle in my radio. The signal was back. I called in for backup and medical, citing possible exposure or mental confusion, whatever excuse I could make without sounding like I was the crazy one. They arrived 20 minutes later. By then, Ortiz had stopped talking entirely. He just stared at the tree line, like something was still out there. The weirdest part? When we towed the Civic, the mechanic who did the intake found something I hadn't noticed. Child-sized handprints. On the inside of the trunk lid, no missing child reports. No signs of forced entry. No blood, no hair, no prints in the system. Just smudged fingers, small, sticky, and pressed upward, like whoever made them had been reaching out. Ortiz never came back to the department, transferred out within the month. Lasty. I heard he'd moved down to Florida to get away from the mountains. Can't say I blame him. Because here's the thing no one talks about with that mile marker. Every time someone reports a car in that spot, it's the same story. Engine warm, doors unlocked, no footprints, and something in the back seat, Ortiz. Left Tennessee 2 weeks later. Never said goodbye. Just packed up, dropped off his badge, and vanished. I got a short text. Don't drive that stretch again. Whatever it is. It follows. I wanted to believe he was just rattled. New kid panic. Maybe a stress response, PTSD, something explainable. But ever since that call on I-26, something about that place has been scratching at the back of my mind, like a splinter under the skin you can't quite dig out. And then the phone rang again. Dispatch hit me up 3 days after Ortiz left. Another motorist call. Same mile marker, same description. Black sedan, hazards on, no movement inside. Caller didn't stop, just passed by and gave coordinates. I asked who was closest. They said I was. Of course I was. I sat in the cruiser for a while at the gas station just outside Unicoi, engine idling, coffee cooling in the cup holder. I could have called it in, asked someone else to take it. But I didn't. Something in me. It wasn't pride, and it sure as hell wasn't curiosity. Said I needed to see it through. Maybe to prove to myself it wasn't real. Maybe to prove to Ortiz that it was, so I went. The fog started about 2 miles out, low and thick, creeping like smoke across the blacktop. That stretch of road is tight, carved into the side of the ridge with nothing but trees and drop-offs on either side. Cell signal always fades around mile marker 239. Radios too. I knew, the moment I entered the dead zone because the static on dispatch went silent mid-word. Then I saw the car. Not a black sedan this time. A white Crown Vic older model, one of ours, parked perfectly straight on the shoulder. Clean. No visible damage. And my stomach sank, because I knew that car. It was the one used by the Miller twins back in Oro 8. The car we decommissioned and junked over 10 years ago. I pulled behind it, lights off. Stepped out into that soupy fog, flashlight sweeping low. The air smelled wrong, like damp wood and copper. Every step I took sounded muffled, like the fog was swallowing the crunch of gravel. I approached the driver's side. The window was down. Snow dusted the inside of the seat. Keys in the ignition, but no one inside. No boot prints. No sign of movement. And then I saw the name tag sitting on the dash. Faded, cracked with age. D. Miller. My breath caught. This couldn't be real. That cruiser had been crushed, scrapped, logged in the department system, and gone. But here it was, right where he vanished, as if it had been waiting. And when I looked at the back seat, it was fogged over, except for one thing: a single clear handprint in the center of the window, pressed from the inside. Small, child-sized. Like before. Opened the back door. Nothing there. Just the sound of wind, or maybe breathing, somewhere behind me. When I turned around, there was nothing but fog. And then my radio crackled. Through the static, I heard Ortiz's voice. Ryan, don't let it in the car. The voice was warped, staticky, coming from the handheld clip to my chest. Impossible. The signal was still dead. I hadn't even touched the radio, but there it was. If it sits in the back seat, you won't come back. And then, click. Silence. I slammed the back door shut and stepped away. That's when the Crown Vic's dome light flicked on. By itself. Nobody inside, but the light was on, and there was a shape in the back seat now. Just a shadow, sitting upright, motionless. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then my cruiser's lights, my own cruiser, flashed once, like someone had opened the driver's door. I spun around. It was wide open. And in the back seat, a dark shape. Long limbs. A face I couldn't quite see, like it was behind thick glass or water, and it tilted its head at me, just slightly, like it was considering. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I sprinted straight into the fog, heart hammering, chest burning. I didn't stop until I hit the edge of the zone, until I heard my radio chirp back to life with dispatch asking if I was on scene. I turned to look. Nothing behind me. No cruiser, no Crown Vic, just wet road and trees. Like none of it had been there at all. I filed a report that night. Left out the ghost cruiser. Left out the voice. Just logged it as a false call. They'll never find that car. Because I don't think it was ever really there. I think that stretch of road shows you what it wants you to see, and if you let it sit in your back seat, you don't come back. Ortiz was right. Whatever it is, it follows. Sometimes when I'm driving alone, I'll glance in the rearview mirror and swear I see someone in the back seat, just for a second, just the faintest shadow. And then it's gone. I don't listen to the radio anymore in that stretch. And I never ever stop near mile marker 239, because something's waiting there, and it already knows my name. I've worked the night shift for McDowell County Sheriff's Department for almost 9 years now. Most people hear West Virginia and picture rusted-out pickups, boarded-up coal towns, maybe a moonshine joke or two. What they don't picture is just how empty it can get out here. Whole sections of road that haven't seen a new house since the 70s. Mountain switchbacks that wind so tight you start talking to yourself just to stay sane. And the dark? Out here, the dark means something, especially when you're down near the old mines. That night started like any other, slow, quiet, uneventful. It was mid-February, one of those brittle Appalachian nights where your breath feels like it'll crack when it leaves your lungs. Cold enough to make your bones ache just sitting still. I was posted up outside of War, West Virginia, off Highway 16, sipping terrible gas station coffee and flipping through a beat-up paperback in the cruiser. A little after 11 p.m., the radio crackled in. Unit 6, possible trespassing, Old Ridgetop Mining Access Road. Caller said it looked like someone riding an ATV near the north gate. That raised my eyebrow. Ridgetop was a ghost zone, one of the older mines shut down since the early 80s. The kind of place wrapped in no trespassing signs and crisscrossed with collapsed shafts and unstable ground. There's a rusting access gate up there, but it barely keeps out the wind, let alone some drunk teenager on a four-wheeler. I keyed the mic. Unit 6 en route. The drive up was 15 minutes of pitch-black switchbacks, the kind that make you keep one hand ready to flick on your spotlight. The forest along the road was skeletal, bare trees clicking softly in the wind like old bones. Fog hung low in the dips, thick enough to make the high beams bounce back like I was underwater. When I got to the access road, I saw the tracks immediately. Fresh, narrow tires kicked up mud and gravel. And about 50 yards ahead, two bright, white lights flickered through the trees. Headlights. They were bouncing like the driver was going fast, reckless. Definitely an ATV. Looked like they were cutting through the winding trail, headed deeper into the mine perimeter. I hit the gas. The cruiser jostled hard as I took the access road. The deeper I went, the more it felt wrong. Not in a haunted house kind of way, but off. Like the atmosphere itself was different. The air tasted metallic, heavy, like sucking oxygen, through a steel pipe. And even with the windows up, I felt it creeping in. I radioed in again. Pursuing possible trespasser, ATV, Ridgetop Road, will update. But there was only static. Not unusual. Signals spotty up in the hollers. Still, I didn't like it. About a quarter mile in, the ATV's lights blinked out, just gone. No fade, no curve, no slow descent around a corner. Just two bright eyes swallowed up by the dark. I slowed down, cut the siren, rolled to a crawl, didn't want to spook them if they were hiding. That's when the cruiser stuttered. Engine hiccuped once. Dashboard lights flickered. I muttered, "Come on, not now." Then the engine died. Everything went black. No headlights, no dash, no heat. Just the faint hum of wind through the cracked forest and the sudden, suffocating silence. I sat still for a second, hand on the ignition, heartbeat ticking in my ears. Then I saw the fog, not regular fog. This stuff was thick, crawling in from the tree line like it had purpose. It rolled in low, hugging the ground, and it shimmered with a strange green hue under the moonlight. I opened the door to step out and felt the cold slam into me like a punch. My skin prickled instantly, and breathing became weird, thin, like I was standing on a mountaintop. I hit my chest mic out of habit. Unit 6, cruiser stalled. Suspect last seen heading east on static, not even a beep, no signal, no connection. I decided to investigate on foot, grabbed the flashlight from the dash and clipped on the body cam just to cover my bases. The red light blinked to life. I moved toward where I'd last seen the headlights, my boots crunching on loose shale and frost. That air kept getting heavier. And the deeper I walked, the more I started hearing things. Subtle at first, like footsteps. Out of sync with mine, like someone behind me stopping when I stopped. Every time I turned around, there was nothing but fog and forest. Then I found the tracks, ATV tire marks. And footprints. Not boot prints. Bare feet. Deep, ragged, heel-heavy impressions. They looked wet, even though the ground was dry. I followed them. About 50 yards ahead, I came to a break in the trail. And that's when I realized where I was standing. Over an old collapsed shaft. The boards around it were decades rotted, and a crumbling danger, unstable sign was hanging sideways from one chain. The ATV tracks led straight up to it, and stopped. No turn, no brake marks, no skidding, just gone. Circled the edge with my light, expecting to see broken branches, some kind of fall damage. But there was nothing, except a faint, glowing shimmer of light, greenish-white, pulsing slowly, deep in the hole. Like the ATV lights hadn't disappeared. They'd sunk. I backed up fast, turned to head back to the cruiser. But the path behind me wasn't there, just trees. Thick, unfamiliar, way too close together. I spun in a slow circle. Nothing looked right. The fog was thicker now, turning the beam of my flashlight into soup. The woods had gone dead quiet, no wind, no owls, no twigs snapping. I was alone and I wasn't Something moved behind me, a shape, tall, gaunt, not quite human. I turned to face it, and it ducked out of sight. Fast. Animal fast. I raised the flashlight and scanned, my breath now full-on panic gasps. Each inhale felt thinner, like someone was sucking the air out of the world. Then I heard it, a sound I will never forget. Gurgling, wet, rhythmic, like something breathing through water. I bolted, didn't care where I ran, just moved. Branches slapped my face, thorns snagged my jacket. I just ran until the air thinned enough to breathe again, until I saw the cruiser half sunk in the fog, still dead. But there, I collapsed into the driver's seat and turned the key, not expecting anything. It started. Headlights flickered back to life. Dashboard blinked on. Radio came alive mid-burst. Repeat, do you copy? Deputy Matheson, do you copy? I slammed the mic. Dispatch, this is Unit 6, I'm back in the vehicle. Stalled earlier. Possible environmental interference, no suspect located. There was a pause. Then, understood. We've got you on GPS now. You okay? I looked into the rearview mirror, and for just a second, I saw a face. Pale. Eyes too wide. Skin like wet clay. Pressed against the inside of the back window. Then it was gone. Back at the station, I filed a report. Said the suspect fled before I arrived. Didn't mention the shaft, or the fog, or the body cam. Because when I tried to play it back, corrupted. The file existed, but it was nothing but static and warbled screeches. Same with the dash cam, it showed the ATV lights, then a sudden drop. Not a turn, a descent. Like they were swallowed. Straight into the earth. I didn't sleep when I got home. Didn't shower. Didn't eat. I just sat on the edge of my couch, staring at the flash drive I'd pulled from the cruiser's dashcam unit. I'd hoped, prayed, that plugging it into my laptop might pull up something, anything, even a single clean frame. But all I got was the same 3-second glitch over and over, 2 lights, a blur, and then down, like gravity yanked them into the earth. The department chalked it up as a false call. No ATV recovered. No suspect located. No one had reported a missing four-wheeler, a missing person. Nothing. It was like I'd chased a ghost into the woods and nearly lost my damn mind doing it. But the thing that stayed with me most was that face in the mirror. About a week passed, I tried to let it go. Did normal patrols, took the easy calls, avoided anything even remotely uphill or off-road, and I kept telling myself it had to be a breakdown. Bad wiring, low oxygen messing with my head, some kind of hallucination triggered by CO exposure or mountain air pressure. But then I got a call from Ryan, our department tech guy. He's the one who handles internal footage audits and camera systems. Bit of a loner, not the type to rattle easy. He asked me to come down to the basement server room. Said there was something wrong with the backup footage from that night. He played it without saying a word, and I watched the moment again. This time from the server-side sync of the body cam, same shaky footage. But this time, right before it cut out, there was a whisper, low, gravelly, almost inside my head. Come. Closer. Ryan paused it. Man, he said quietly, what was out there with you? I didn't answer. Couldn't, because it wasn't just the voice. It was the other footage. He turned and opened a secondary file folder. Thing is, he said, while your unit was stalled, your external radio antenna still pinged a signal. Like it was transmitting, but not from the cruiser. Like it moved away from the car. I stared at him. He brought up a low-res mapping program. Primitive GPS logs tied to our squad vehicles. And there it was. A small red dot. Unit 6, sitting. Idle off Ridgetop Road then for 7 minutes. The signal moved into the woods. About 200 yards, then stopped and disappeared. Whatever happened, Ryan said. Something was broadcasting from your unit frequency, and it wasn't your cruiser. That night I did something stupid. I went Back. I didn't tell dispatch, didn't radio in. I waited until after my shift, loaded a spare trail cam, a 9mm, and a high lumen lantern, and drove back up to Ridgetop Access Road just before 1 a.m. I parked before the fog, walked the rest on foot. The cold was different this time, wet, almost oily. It clung to me like a film, and every step into the fog felt like I was stepping underwater. I walked until I reached the collapsed shaft again, and just like before, the lights were there, glowing faintly. Greenish white. Same pulse. Like a heartbeat. I mounted the trail cam on a tree, facing the pit. Set it for motion activation. Then I walked in a slow circle, looking for tracks. And I found them. Boot prints. Old, wide, worn down, but clearly cop-issued boots, and beside them, the bare feet again, trailing just behind, almost like they were following, almost like they were hers. I took out my flashlight and stepped to the shaft edge. The mist seemed to bend around it, and that's when I heard it again. Cole, my name, from below. It didn't echo. It vibrated, like it was inside my spine. I staggered back, heart thudding, turned to leave, and saw a figure standing between me and the path, about 10 feet tall, limbs too long, torso narrow, eyes like wet bulbs, black and glassy and deep. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, and somehow, I knew. That thing didn't just live near the mines. It came from them, or maybe was buried by them, and now, it was waking up. I don't remember running. I just remember the cold on my teeth, the ache in my chest, and the sound of something large moving just behind me. Stalking, slow, but never far. I reached the cruiser, dove in, locked the doors. The engine cranked, miraculously. As I reversed back onto the road, headlights cut through the fog and lit up a dozen figures standing on either side, all barefoot, all in tattered clothes, all staring, mouths slack, eyes empty, just watching me leave. Next morning, I pulled the trail cam. Only one clip had triggered. 15 seconds, you can't see much. But at the 8-second mark, something rises out of the shaft, not climbs, rises, straight up, no limbs, just mass. Then the footage corrupts. I submitted my resignation that night, packed a duffel, left a note. I didn't even clear out my locker, because I knew if I stayed, if I kept driving those roads, it would find its way into my car, into the back seat, into me, and I don't think I'd have the strength to come back out again. They said the mines collapsed decades ago, that nothing's been alive down there since the 80s. But I don't think that's true. I think something survived, and it's still pulling people in, just waiting for the next idiot with a badge and a flashlight to come sniffing around. Even now, every once in a while, I'll get a call from an old buddy on patrol. They'll say, "Hey man, you ever hear of people seeing lights up near Ridgetop?" And all I tell them is, if you do, don't follow them. Whatever's down there, it wants company. I've been working Buncombe County Sheriff's Office for 15 years now, and if there's one stretch of road I wish we could erase from the map, it's the curve off Route 276 near the Pisgah forest boundary, about 3 miles past Looking. Glass Falls. It's sharp, blind, and hugs the edge of a ravine with no guardrail, just a slope that disappears into dense forest. I can't count how many wrecks I've worked there over the years, but the one I'm about to tell you about, I still dream about it. Because no matter how many times I play it over in my head, none of it makes sense. It was early October. Cool, misty Monday evening. Leaves had just started turning that deep Appalachian gold, and the chill in the air was more crisp than cold. The kind of weather where you keep your jacket unzipped, but you know frost's not far behind. I was halfway through my overnight shift, sipping gas station coffee that tasted like metal and waiting for time to pass. Around 11:42 p.m., I got the call. Unit 14, respond to single vehicle accident off 276 near the Pisgah curve. Vehicle overturned. Caller reports car is upside down, still running. Possible entrapment. No ambulance yet. No fire. Just me. The fog thickened as I crept toward the site. My headlights cut through it like old movie projectors, revealing just enough to make you feel blind. That stretch of forest doesn't play fair at night. Pines lean too close and the moss seems to drink up sound. Every curve looks the same in the dark, but when I saw the brake marks, long, sharp black streaks, I knew I was there. The car was upside down. A maroon Toyota Camry, late 2000s. Tires still spinning, engine humming like a lullaby. Headlights pointed down the slope, casting sickly beams into the woods. I pulled off, killed my lights, and stepped out. The air smelled like radiator steam and damp leaves. Familiar, too familiar. But something about it felt off. "Sheriff's Department," I called out. No response. I approached cautiously, one hand on my mag light, the other near my belt. The Camry's front end was bent slightly from the rollover, but the windshield wasn't shattered. No airbags deployed. No visible blood. Driver's side door, wide open. Not popped open from the crash. Opened, like someone had calmly stepped out. I crouched and shone my light inside. Empty. No one in the seats. No bags. No phone. No wallet. Nothing. The engine kept running. The cabin was warm, but there was no sign of anyone. I did a perimeter sweep, 30 feet in every direction. No blood, no tracks, no drag marks in the grass or forest floor. The soil was soft, just damp enough to show prints if someone had walked or crawled out. But there was nothing. I circled back to the driver's side, puzzled. That's when I saw it. Something hanging from the rearview mirror. I leaned in and squinted. Child's drawing. Torn paper, about the size of a napkin. Crayon. Stick figures. 2 tall ones, and a small one between them holding hands. Scribbled green background, what looked like a brown house in the corner and a bright red sun in the upper corner. But the part that made me freeze. At the bottom of the drawing, in thick, uneven crayon strokes, was written, "That's my unit number." No name. No other numbers, just a big scrawled 1 and 4 in red. Now, I don't rattle easy. I've seen some dark stuff out here. Meth cookhouses, suicides in trailers, old folks forgotten in cabins. But this felt personal. Too personal. Like someone had planned for me to find it. I called it in. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14. Vehicle is confirmed rolled over, empty on arrival. No injuries found. Requesting additional unit and K9 for forest search." Copy that, 14. Any sign of occupant? Negative. Cruiser dash cam active. Engine still running. No blood or prints. Just... I hesitated. Just something strange. Inside the car. I'll secure the scene until backup arrives. While I waited, I killed the engine on the Camry and left the doors open for fire to check it. I clipped the drawing from the mirror and placed it in an evidence bag. I scanned the VIN, ran the plates, came back to a local name, Ashley Kramer, 27, address in Hendersonville. No record. Clean. I called her number. Straight to voicemail. I stepped away from the car to do another sweep, and that's when I heard it, a sharp click, like metal tapping glass. I turned fast, nothing behind me. Then I looked at the cruiser. The interior lights were on, and the driver's side door was open. I know I locked it. I always lock it. My hand went to my sidearm. I crept forward, slow, scanning with the mag light. The cruiser was empty, but on the front seat, right in the middle of my duty notebook, was something new. Another drawing. Same size, same crayon style. Only this one showed just one stick figure, alone in a forest of crooked brown lines, big black eyes, no mouth. Above it, floating in the sky, was a red sun with a frown, and beneath the drawing, again. That's when the cruiser lights began to flicker. My radio spat static, and I swear for a split second I felt someone standing behind me. But when I turned, just trees, silent, still. And then, snap, a branch, off to the right, maybe 20 yards down the slope. Then another. But no footsteps, like something big was gliding just out of view. Backup finally arrived 18 minutes later. 2 deputies and a dog. They found me standing on the shoulder, flashlight gripped so hard my hand had gone numb. I couldn't explain the drawings, couldn't explain the door, couldn't explain the sound I still heard faintly, like whispering from down in the trees. We swept the woods. Nothing. No trail. No signs of a struggle. Just pine needles, moss, and a heavy silence that made you feel like you were inside someone else's lungs. Ashley Kramer never turned up. Her friend said she left work around 10:30 that night. Headed home. Never made it. No calls. No sightings. Her car sat in the impound lot for weeks before her parents had it towed. I heard her dad burned it. Didn't even want to sell it. The drawings were entered into evidence. But no fingerprints. No DNA. Nothing to tie it to Ashley or any known person. And when I tried to show the dash cam footage, the file was corrupted. Just a single static image before the feed cut out. The Camry, upside down, with a figure standing just behind it. Tall, thin arms hanging too low, face blurred, and the timestamp frozen at 11:42 p.m. The exact moment I got the call. I don't work nights anymore. I asked for a shift change 2 weeks later. Haven't been back to that curve since. But sometimes on my morning shift, when I drive past that stretch of 276, I swear I see a car parked just around the bend, just out of view, like it's waiting for someone, like it knows my number. I tried to let it go. I told myself someone was messing with me, a sick prank. Maybe someone had seen my unit number, made those drawings ahead of time, planted them somehow. The brain will reach for anything to feel normal again. But in the weeks that followed that crash scene on Route 276, normal didn't come back, because the drawings didn't stop. The third one came the following Thursday. I was back on day shift, parked outside the Ingles supermarket in Brevard, writing a citation, nothing special. Sunny day, people out and about. When I came back to my cruiser after 10 minutes inside, there it was, sitting on my dash under the windshield wiper. Same size, same crayon strokes. This one showed a cop car, half sunk in the ground, trees growing around it. A figure slumped. Behind the wheel, stick arms sticking out the window. And over the roof, a red sun with black teeth. Guess what number was written in the corner? That was the first time I had a full-on panic reaction. I locked my doors, checked every camera in the lot. No sign of anyone approaching the vehicle. I called dispatch, asked if any kids had come near my cruiser. Nothing. I asked if Ashley Kramer had ever been found. Still missing. No leads. Then came the call from Henderson County. A maintenance worker on the Blue Ridge Parkway reported finding another overturned car just off a gravel pull-off. Different make and model. Same conditions. Engine running. No driver. Driver's side door open. A child's drawing hanging from the rearview mirror, and this time, the unit number written on it wasn't mine. It was 22, Deputy Angie Stokes, a friend of mine. I called Angie that night. She sounded shaken. Told me she hadn't seen anything weird at the scene, but after she filed the report, her home mailbox had a drawing in it. Folded in half. Plain white envelope. No stamp. Inside, a stick figure that looked like her. Short, hair, badge, uniform with black eyes, no mouth, standing under a tree hanging upside down. Her patrol number in the corner. She didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. I started digging. I went back through accident reports for the past 10 years. Any crash around that curve on 276. I pulled everything I could find. Incident logs, missing person reports, fire rescue dispatches. There were 14 single-vehicle accidents along that same bend since 2011. 7 involved overturned vehicles with the engine still running. 5 had no injuries, but drivers described seeing someone in the road before swerving. 2, Ashley's included, ended with the occupant completely vanishing. But here's the detail that stopped me cold. 3 of those cases had notes in the officer's report, mentioning a drawing in the car, crayon, Childlike. Odd detail never followed up. All 3 officers worked for our department. All 3 gone. 1 retired early. 1 transferred out of state. The last one, Deputy Tim Woods, went missing in 2017. His cruiser was found abandoned off a service road near the Blue Ridge Parkway. No signs of struggle, no radio traffic, just a drawing, taped to the inside of the windshield. No one released that detail to the public. And the drawing was logged under evidence file number 147B. That night, I had a dream. I was standing at that curve. Fog curling up from the forest, leaves swirling, the Camry upside down again, tires still spinning. Only this time I saw her. A child, maybe 8 years old, barefoot in a plain dress. Blonde hair matted with leaves, standing in the middle of the road staring at me with those same black eyes from the drawings. She smiled, and then she held out a piece of paper. I took it. It showed me, asleep in bed, something tall standing at the foot of it. The red sun outside my window, and her tiny hand reaching up to the doorknob. I woke up gasping. The next morning, I called in sick. I drove out to the curve alone, parked by the old service pull-off and walked into the woods near where Ashley Kramer's car had been found. I followed the drop-off trail, deeper than I'd ever gone during the initial sweep. About 100 feet in, I found it. An old shed, rotted wood, half-collapsed roof, almost invisible behind a screen of brush. No road led to it, no signs of anyone using it in years. But the door was open. Inside, stacks of paper, hundreds of childlike drawings. Some were fresh. Others looked decades old, faded, molded, but they all had the same style. Stick figures, red, suns, and everyone was numbered, all different, except one, taped to the back wall. Fresh, still smelling like wax crayon. It showed me standing in front of the shed, and behind me, something black, tall, faceless reaching out. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand. There was nothing, not a sound. Then I heard it. Right outside the shed, scratching, slow, fingernails on bark, or something pretending to be fingernails. Then, a whisper. You saw it, you followed it, now you're part of the story. I ran, didn't look back, didn't care if it was real or not. I burned the clothes I wore that day, wiped the cruiser's interior clean. I resigned 2 days later, packed my truck and moved in with my brother down in Georgia. But here's the part I haven't told anyone, until now. A few weeks after I left, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded drawing, wrapped in wax paper. Same style, same crayon. It showed my brother's house. Me, sitting inside, and something in the attic. Watching. I threw it in the fire. Didn't matter. They just keep coming. Sometimes under my windshield wiper. Sometimes slid under the front door. Always silent. Always hand-delivered. Like the artist is just one step behind me, every single one signed the same way. Whatever it is, it chooses people. Follows them. Draws them into its world. Literally. Maybe it feeds on the attention. Or the fear. Or maybe the drawings are all that's left of the ones who vanished. I don't patrol anymore, don't wear a uniform. But I still check the mirrors every time I drive. Because I know what comes next. There'll be one final drawing, and I won't need to read the number, because this time, it'll be me in the picture, alone, in the woods, with the red sun smiling down. I'm not one to entertain ghost stories. I grew up in the hills of Watauga County, North Carolina, where every back road has some old wives' tale. Don't go out after dark, the devil walks in Deep Gap. You see a black dog at a crossroads, turn around. That kind of stuff. Most of it's born out of too much moonshine and not enough cable TV, so when folks used to talk about the gray man on Highway 421, I chalked it up to the same nonsense. Just another creepy tale people like to pass around late at night, probably, to scare tourists or their kids. Supposedly, He walks the shoulder of the highway near Zionville, tall, drenched head to toe, and always staring straight ahead. Some say he's an omen. Others say he's a leftover from a wreck no one ever reported. Some even believe he's not human at all. I never bought into it until I almost hit him. It was late November of last year, the kind of cold where the air feels brittle in your lungs and the wind smells like snow before it ever falls. I was working nights hauling cargo between Boone and Mountain City. Mostly auto parts, nothing high risk. Just long, lonely hours through the Appalachian curves. I'd been running late that night. There was black ice on 105 earlier and I was already chewing into my brake window. The clock on the dash said 2:17 a.m. as I crested the last ridge before the Tennessee line. I was about 5 miles west of Zionville, somewhere along that stretch where 421 runs shoulderless through the woods. No lights, no exits, just dark. 2-lane road and drop-offs that go down forever. Then I saw him. At first it was just movement, something in the high beams on the right shoulder. I thought it was a deer, maybe a dog. But as I got closer, I saw the outline. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, soaking wet. He was walking along the edge of the road like he didn't care that my truck was barreling toward him at 60. I hit the brakes hard, tires skidding slightly on. Frost. My heart jumped into my throat and I laid on the horn. And he was gone. Just gone. No thump, no impact. Nothing flew into the ditch. My rig came to a full stop in the middle of the lane, headlights catching nothing but trees and shoulder. Sat there for a full 30 seconds, breathing hard. Scanning both mirrors, checking the ditches. My knuckles were white on the wheel. But there was no one. I finally eased the truck forward, heart still hammering. A mile down, I found a wide enough turnout and pulled off. I grabbed my flashlight and walked the length of the trailer, checking for damage, dents, blood, anything. Nothing. Back in the cab, I sat for a minute trying to steady my nerves. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe it was fog and shadow. Still, I flipped open the dash cam screen to preview the footage just to settle my own mind. That's when it got worse. The recording showed the moment clearly, the right shoulder illuminated, the tall figure stepping into view, just inside the bow beam's edge. But it wasn't him. Not exactly. What I saw in that footage stopped me cold. It wasn't the soaked, faceless figure the stories talked about. It was me, standing on the side of the road, soaked, pale, staring directly at the truck with an expression I've never made in my life, not fear, not anger, just emptiness, like I was already dead. I shut the screen. I didn't sleep when I got home. I sat in my living room in the dark, the dashcam SD card still in my jacket pocket, trying to make sense of it. My phone stayed on the table. I didn't want to show anyone. Who would I even tell? Hey, I almost hit a ghost and the ghost looked like me. No thanks, I shoved it to the back of my mind, but the road didn't let go. A week later, I passed through that stretch again, same time of night. This time I drove slower. I kept my eyes off the shoulder. Nothing happened. No figure. No movement. But when I got home, out of habit, I checked the dash cam again, and he was there, clear as day, standing in the same spot as before, only this time facing away. Just standing still, unmoving, like he was waiting for something, like he was following me. And again, it was me. Same clothes, same build, same everything, only now. The figure was holding something, a flashlight. I stopped driving nights after that, swapped shifts with another guy, started doing afternoon hauls instead. Told dispatch it was health-related, couldn't drive late anymore. That worked for a while. I didn't see him again. Life started to feel normal, until the dreams started. They were always the same. I'm back on 421 driving, the trees press in on both sides. The fog rolls up out of nowhere. My high beams hit the shoulder and I see myself, just standing there. Soaked, slack-jawed, eyes black like standing water. And I'm smiling. But it's not me smiling. It's something wearing my face. Each time, I wake up sweating, heart racing, and each time I check the dash cam on my phone from that last trip, each time, there's a new frame. One frame only, frozen in place. A still image of me, outside the truck, mouth open, eyes empty, staring into the camera, and always closer than the last. Last night was the worst. I hadn't checked the cam in 2 weeks. I thought, maybe it was done, but something told me to look. I pulled up the app, scrolled through the old logs. Only one new entry, a file time-stamped at 2:17 a.m., the same time I first saw him, even though I hadn't driven that road in over a month. I clicked. It was just 10 seconds of footage. Darkness, then headlights turning on. And in the beam, a man standing in the middle of the road, soaked, eyes glowing like an animal's. And for the first time, he moved, tilted his head, raised a hand, and waved. Not slowly, frantic, like he was trying to warn me, like he wanted me to turn back. But here's the part that stopped my heart. When I froze the frame and zoomed in, he wasn't waving at the truck. He was waving at the camera. At me. And the very last frame of that file, a close-up of my own face, right up against the lens. Mouth open, eyes wide, and someone standing just behind me. I didn't want to believe it. I stared at that frame for over an hour. My own face, too close, distorted by the camera lens, locked in this unnatural expression. Eyes wide, mouth agape like I was in the middle of a scream. But I don't remember screaming. And just behind me, that thing, the outline of a figure, taller than me, standing in the dark with no discernible features. Just presence. A suggestion of something else. I yanked the SD card from the dashcam and crushed it with a hammer in the garage. I don't know what I thought that would do. Stop the dreams, stop the weird glitches, but I needed to feel like I had some control, like I could shut a door on whatever had followed me back from that highway. Turns out you can't shut a door that's already been opened. That night, I caught my reflection moving out of sync. Not in a haunted house kind of way. This wasn't some old mirror hanging in the attic. I was brushing my teeth, leaned over the sink, and I lifted my head. The man in the mirror was just a hair too slow, just a blink, but enough that I noticed. He caught up a second later, same motions, same expression, but my heart dropped into my stomach. I backed away, the toothbrush clattering into the sink. I stood there, breathing hard, watching the mirror. Nothing else happened, but I knew what I'd seen. Over the next few days, things escalated. My face started showing up in other places. Once on the backup camera of my truck, just for a split second before it went fuzzy. Once on a security cam at a gas station, frozen in a frame while the footage kept playing. Even my phone's front camera glitched and showed it, me in the dark lit by headlights I didn't recognize. And always, my expression was the same. Mouth open, wide-eyed, as if I was just about to shout something. Like I was warning myself, or like I was being taken. I started researching the Gray Man legend. Turns out the stories go back further than I thought. Decades, maybe longer. Some say he's tied to old mining deaths. Others say he's a remnant of a Civil War soldier who was run down on the road. But none of them mentioned what I was experiencing, except one. On an obscure forum dedicated to Appalachian folklore, I found a thread from 2008. A user with the handle Ridgewalker67 had posted about a strange encounter on 421. He claimed he'd seen the Gray Man walking along the highway, said he almost ran him over, said he stopped to check his dashcam later, and instead of the man, he saw himself standing on the shoulder waving. His last post? He's not just seen, he's mirrored. The Gray Man is your reflection, after he's taken something from you. The post had no replies. The account was deleted shortly after. I ran a reverse image search on the profile photo tied to Ridgewalker67. It took me to a 2011 obituary. Aaron Mitchell, Boone, North Carolina. Died in a single vehicle accident near Zionville. No witnesses, no explanation. That was it. I'd had enough. I packed a duffel, locked up the house, and drove straight to a motel off I-40 in Asheville. I figured if this thing was tied to the highway, maybe distance would help. I kept the curtains closed, left the TV on, slept with the lights on. I didn't check any cameras, didn't look in mirrors, but it found me anyway. The knock came at 2:17 a.m. Exactly. Same. Time I first saw him, 3 knocks, measured, calm, I didn't move. Just stared at the door like a bomb was ticking on the other side. Then my phone lit up on the nightstand, a notification from the dashcam app. Even though I'd destroyed the SD card, uninstalled the app, reset the damn system, it was back. The alert read, "New footage available, 11 seconds recorded at 2:17 a.m. I opened it, and what I saw made my blood freeze. It was footage from inside the motel room, from the corner. Like the camera was mounted on the ceiling, it showed me lying in bed staring at the door, and standing just behind me, in the dark corner of the room, was him, soaked, still, watching. Then the footage glitched, and my body disappeared from the bed, gone, just the gray man remaining. And as the video ended, he turned to the camera and smiled. I tore the room apart. No cameras. No one at the front desk had any explanation. I didn't sleep. Didn't even sit down. I drove back home the next morning with my hands trembling on the wheel, and the sensation that every shadow in my rear view was watching me. It's been a month. Stopped driving 4:21. Stopped driving at all, really. The reflection still shows up. Now it's not just in mirrors or cameras. Sometimes I see him in windows, standing outside the house when I know I'm alone. Sometimes I hear him. His footsteps echo, mine in the hall. His breath comes a half second after mine. He's closer now, I can feel it. Whatever the gray man is, he doesn't just haunt a highway, he becomes you. Or maybe you become him. I used to think he was a ghost. But now I think he's a warning. A copy. A mirror version of everyone who's ignored the signs. He's not here to hurt me. He's here to replace. Last night I woke up to my phone buzzing again. No caller ID, no number, just a video file waiting in my inbox. It was live footage from my front door camera. It was night. Headlights approached. My truck, running, slowly pulling into the driveway, and behind the wheel, me soaked, wide-eyed, mouth open, just staring into the lens. I don't think I'm going to survive this, but if you're hearing this, if you drive 421, especially near Zionville, and you see someone walking the shoulder, don't stop, don't look, and for the love of God, never look at the dash cam, because once you do, that version of you might not go away. There's a stretch of Route 11 in Southern Virginia that doesn't show up in brochures or postcards. No scenic overlooks, no charming farm stands, just 40 unbroken miles of empty blacktop, framed by tobacco fields and ancient woods that always seem a little too still. We get the usual calls out there, stray cows, fender benders, the occasional meth lab tucked into an old barn. But every now and then something strange bubbles up, stuff the younger deputies joke about and the older ones pretend not to hear. I used to roll my eyes at all that. I've been a cop for 11 years, and I don't spook easy. But that changed last fall. It was mid-October. The sky was bruised with low clouds and the kind of cold that sneaks up on you, wet, bone deep. I was working the late shift solo, cruising Route 11 about 15 miles south of Pulaski. Just checking pull-offs and gravel turnouts, half distracted, with a stale gas station coffee when the call came in. Possible trespasser near Old Martin's Mill. Caller says someone's wandering around the edge of their soybean field, described as white male, late 50s, trench coat, unsteady gait, standard drunk vagrant. No big deal. I rolled onto the dirt road that ran parallel to the field, past a decaying barn and a stretch of old barbed wire fence that hadn't been strung tight since the 90s. That's when I saw him. He was standing just off the edge of the road, maybe 15 feet into the weeds, facing away. Still as a post, our coat was long and filthy, stained dark down the back like it had been dragged through mud or something worse. He didn't turn as I rolled up behind him, didn't flinch when I hit the spotlight. Just stood there, head low, arms loose at his sides. I stepped out, hand on my belt. "Sir, you all right?" No response. I took a few steps closer. "Sir, I need you to turn around and talk to me." He slowly turned, and I swear to God, he smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile you give a cop to say I'm not a threat. It was the kind that made you feel like he already knew what was going to happen next and you didn't. His eyes were sunk deep in their sockets, almost shadowed out entirely, and his skin had a waxy look, like it didn't quite fit his skull. But the creepiest thing, he was holding a cigarette. Just dangling there between two fingers, not lit, just held. And when he finally spoke, it came out slow and raspy, like gravel rolling around in a bucket. "You know I've been waiting for you, right?" My pulse kicked up a notch. I asked for ID. He said he didn't have any, gave a name that didn't pop in my system. He didn't resist when I cuffed him. Hell, he laughed. Kept whispering something under his breath the whole time I walked him back to the cruiser. Couldn't catch all of it, but the last part I heard clearly. "Always circles back to you." I figured he was just a drunk tweaker looking to spook, a cop, but I'd learn different soon enough. I put him in the back seat, double-checked the door locks, slid the partition shut, and called in to say I was en route to holding. 25 minutes tops, about 10 minutes down the road, that's when I noticed the smell. It hit like a wall, rank, wet, and heavy, rotten meat. Not the kind from the dumpster behind a diner. This was deeper, more organic, like roadkill left. To bake for a week, I cracked my window and glanced in the mirror. That's when I realized I couldn't see him. The back seat looked empty. I flipped the dome light on. Still empty. I damn near drove off the road. I pulled over hard, tires kicking gravel, and jumped out, yanking open the back door. Nothing. No passenger. Doors were locked. Cage intact. Window sealed. The cuffs lying neatly on the seat, and right beside them, resting perfectly straight, was a half-smoked cigarette. Still warm, and scratched into the vinyl seat beneath it, clear as day. "Chase my name." In crooked, shallow cuts like it had been carved with a fingernail, I stood there frozen. My stomach dropped into my boots. There were no footprints in the dirt outside the cruiser. No broken grass. No signs of struggle. He hadn't kicked out a door. He hadn't forced the cage. He was just gone. Like he'd never been there, except he had. The cuffs, the cigarette, my name. I radioed it in, kept it vague. Said the suspect slipped out at a stop. Didn't mention the smell. Didn't mention the name carved into the seat. And sure as hell, didn't mention how I never once heard a door open. The sergeant put out a bolo, but nothing came back. No match on fingerprints, no other sightings. Like the guy had evaporated. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even go home. I just sat in the cruiser at a park and ride near the station, windows up, watching the mirrors. The next day, I pulled my own dashcam footage. I needed to see what happened. Needed proof I wasn't going crazy. The cam showed me cuffing him, walking him to the cruiser, putting him in the back. It showed the car rolling, me driving silently. Then the audio spiked. Static, sharp, violent. For 6 full seconds. Then it cut to silence again. And when I looked at the footage, from the moment I glanced in the mirror, the back seat was already empty, like the footage had skipped a frame. There's one more thing. The last frame before the static starts, just a blur of motion in the back seat. Not a person, not a shape, just a smear. Like something wrong was shifting in the frame. A distortion. And if you pause it just right, you can see a hand on the inside of the cage. Pressed flat, palm first. Too long, too pale. I kept that footage on a thumb drive. Didn't turn it in. I still don't know what I encountered out there that night, but I started locking my cruiser when I parked it, even in my driveway. I started leaving the windows cracked open, a bit, even in the rain, just so that smell didn't build up again. Because sometimes when I'm driving alone at night, especially near Route 11, I catch a whiff of something. Rotten, wet. Like something's still back there. And sometimes I'll check my rearview mirror, and for just a second, I'll see a man in a long coat, holding a cigarette, smiling like he's been waiting for me to notice. I told myself it was over. Whatever happened that night, whoever or whatever that man was, I figured it was some strange, One-off hallucination, maybe a gas leak in the cruiser, a bad stress reaction. I chalked it up to exhaustion, the cold, maybe something slipping in my head after a decade on night patrol. But that theory started unraveling real quick. Because 2 days after the incident, I got back in my cruiser for a routine patrol. And there it was, the smell, that same putrid wet stench, like raw meat turned in the heat, but heavier now, like it had soaked into the upholstery, into the plastic, even into the vents. I scrubbed the interior twice, even switched cruisers. It followed. Worse, I started finding cigarettes never lit, always half-smoked, but still warm when I found them. One was left in the glove box of a unit I hadn't driven yet. Another rolled out from under my driver's seat during a brake check. All of them were the same brand, cheap, unfiltered, with a dry tobacco smell. Underneath the rot. That's when I knew. He was still with me. I went back to where I picked him up, out to the soybean field past the old Martin's mill. Midday this time. I told dispatch I was running an unrelated check. There was nothing there. No tracks. No signs anyone had been squatting nearby. Not even the barbed wire I remembered seeing. The barn was still there, but barely. Roof caved in, beams collapsed like broken ribs. I walked the property line slowly. Just as I was about to head back to the cruiser, I saw something nailed to the trunk of an old oak. A single sheet of paper, weathered, tacked with rusted nails. It was an incident report, one of ours from 1991. A report filed by a deputy named Alan Griggs. Same location. Same description. White male, trench coat, no ID. Cuffed and placed in cruiser at approx 10:42 p.m. But the report had been crossed out in red ink, scrawled across it in shaky handwriting. Not the first, won't be the last. At the bottom, a hand-drawn badge number. Mine. I took the paper, stuffed it in my vest pocket. When I got back to the cruiser, the cab light was on, even though I hadn't opened a door. And on the back seat, another cigarette, balanced upright on the vinyl, and beneath it, a fresh scratch. Chase. But this time it wasn't just my first name. Next to it, carved more violently, deep and jagged, was a date. 17, that was 3 days from now. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I dug through the department archives, physical files, the kind the computer system didn't always log. I found Griggs. Turns out he went missing the week after that report was filed, disappeared during a solo shift. Cruiser was found empty on the side of Route 11, keys still in the ignition, engine running. The back seat smelled of rot. And on the seat, they found a scratched-in name. Griggsy didn't tell anyone. I thought about resigning, about getting the hell out of Virginia altogether. But something held me back. That date, 11/17, started looming in my mind like a countdown. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it in my bones. It wasn't just a warning. It was a scheduled return. That night, I stayed in, locked the doors, unplugged the cameras, pushed furniture against the doors like I was prepping for a siege. Around 2 a.m., the power flickered, and the smell came in through the vents. I grabbed my flashlight and checked the windows. Fog outside. Too thick for that time of year. The backyard motion light popped on, and through it I saw him, standing under the oak tree in my yard, soaked, still, his head tilted slightly, watching. He raised a hand, slow and deliberate, not waving, pointing, right at me. I blacked out. Not fainted, just... The next thing I remember, it was morning, and there was a cigarette sitting on my nightstand, still warm, the tip slightly burnt, like it had just been put out. No ashtray, no smell of smoke, just that underlying rot. November 17th came. I didn't go to work. I drove my truck out past Pulaski to a trailhead I used to hike in college. Left the phone behind. No electronics. Just me and a pair of boots and a borrowed tent. I camped for 2 days straight. Didn't speak to anyone. didn't go near the road, and on the morning of the 18th, I went home, checked the cruiser, no new scratches, no cigarettes, no smell. Thought maybe it was over. Maybe I'd outrun it. Maybe the date passed and the thing, whatever he was, had moved on. But last night, I stopped at a diner off I-81 around midnight. Tired, just needed coffee for the last leg home. I sat at the counter. Waitress brought me a mug, asked how my night shift was going. Said, "You cops always come in around the same time." I told her I wasn't working anymore. She tilted her head and said, "Oh, then who was that in your uniform that just left?" I froze. Looked out the window, saw the back of a man walking toward a parked cruiser. Long coat, broad shoulders, and in his right hand, a cigarette. I ran out, heart in my throat. But the cruiser was gone. No taillights, no engine noise, just empty blacktop and the faintest smell. Like something left out too long in the rain. I don't patrol anymore. Don't wear the badge. I haven't put on the uniform since that night. But I still keep the vest in the back of my closet, because every few weeks, someone from dispatch calls. Me asks why I've been checking in on routes I no longer cover. Says my cruiser logs show movement. Route 11 late nights. Always alone. I tell them it's a glitch, that I've been off duty, that I haven't been out there. But they insist. They say my name's in the system, that I signed in, even left a report on the terminal. And when I ask them to read it back, it always ends the same way. Suspect placed in back seat. Cage secured. Smell noted. Nothing remains but a cigarette and a name scratched into the seat. They ask me what it means, and I never have an answer. Because deep down, I know, whatever. I brought into that cruiser that night, he never left, and now, he wears me. I've been a deputy with the State Patrol out of Valdosta for 16 years now, and in that time I've seen my fair share of wrecks, jackknifed rigs, and eerie backroad encounters with truckers high on highway pills and ghost stories. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what we found off that service road near the Georgia line. It started with a call around 5:40 a.m., just before the sun came up. A logging crew had tried to use an old gravel road to detour around, a backup on I-75. They stopped when they saw 3 commercial semis parked nose to tail in a clearing just past the tree line. No movement, no hazards on. CB radios crackling the same repeating signal. Static. Then a faint knock. Over and over. Dispatch said the drivers weren't answering phones. The company they were listed under, Dawson Freight Logistics, was flagged. Inactive in the system. Dissolved 11 years ago. I was already finishing up an overnight DUI checkpoint a few miles away, so I told dispatch I'd roll through, just to check. Seemed odd. Yeah, but not urgent. Probably some old rigs being salvaged, or a GPS mistake. That's what I told myself anyway. By the time I turned off onto the gravel service road, the fog was starting to set in. Thick, wet Appalachian fog that rolls in fast and muffles every sound. My tires crunched over gravel and broken pine needles. The farther I got, the more the woods swallowed up the sunlight. Cell service dropped to 0. Then I saw them. 3 Peterbilts. Parked in a perfect line, like they'd pulled in one after the other and shut off right there. No skid marks. No sign of distress. Their cabs were intact. Windows up. Trailers still. Hitched. All of them were white with faded Dawson Freight logos. Rust biting into the edges like mold. I stepped out of my cruiser, boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. The air smelled like mildew and engine oil. Thick. Wrong. The first truck's engine was cold, but the keys were still in the ignition. No driver inside. CB radio was on, but all it spat out was that low hum of static. And under it, just barely audible, the soft sound of something tapping. Like fingernails on plastic. Knock, knock, knock. I leaned in closer to the speaker. It didn't change channels. No matter what button I pressed, it just kept looping the same signal. I checked the second rig. Same deal. Keys in the ignition. Cold. Engine, no driver, CB on loop. Cargo untouched, looked like dry goods. Manifest printed and clipped to the dash. Timestamp was from 2 days ago. The driver's logbook ended mid-sentence. I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but it felt staged, like someone set this up to make a point, but I couldn't figure out what. Then I got to the third truck, and the smell hit me. Not rot. Not like a dead animal. More like wet copper and burnt plastic. A chemical tang that made the hairs on my arms rise. I pulled the door open and stopped cold. The driver's seat was empty, sure. But the seatbelt was clipped in, stretched tight. Like someone was still there. There was an indentation in the cushion. Fresh, deep, but no body. Not even dust. Then the CB kicked up loud like the gain had jumped on its own. Knock, 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 and then a voice. Faint, garbled. Almost here. I stepped back instinctively, hand on my sidearm. The cab light flickered on by itself. That's when I radioed in for backup. Trooper Jaimes was 10 minutes out. I told dispatch to patch in the regional DOT office, see if they had any record of those trucks moving through way stations. She called me back 3 minutes later, voice shaking. Dawson Freight went under in 2014. Those rigs were auctioned, often scrapped. All 3 VINs you gave me? They were crushed and decommissioned. They shouldn't exist. I stared at the trucks, heart thudding in my throat. Did you check plates? I had. That's what made it worse. Plates matched. And they were clean. Still registered to Dawson Freight, still showing active insurance updated last month. That's when something changed. The fog thickened, all at once like someone had turned up the opacity on the world. My cruiser's headlights vanished behind. The mist. The woods went silent. No birds, no insects, just knock, knock, knock. And then I heard it. Coming from inside the third trailer. Not from the cab. From the cargo hold. I shouldn't have opened it. God, I should have waited. But something compelled me. Curiosity, protocol, adrenaline. I don't know. I walked around to the rear, boots crunching slow, radio silent. I drew my weapon, flipped the locking bars and opened the doors wide. It was empty. No cargo. Just rows of scuff marks along the walls. Deep ones like claws or chains dragged across steel. The floor was soaked in condensation but not water. It was thicker, viscous, like oil. And the smell, oh God, the smell was stronger inside. That copper plastic rot but more acidic now, like burning wires and old blood. I was backing away when my radio crackled. Kessler, respond. And a second voice layered underneath. A whisper. Stay. With us. I dropped the radio. That's when I noticed the footprints inside the trailer. Bare footprints. Human. Leading toward the front wall and stopping at nothing. Like someone had walked forward and disappeared into steel. No return tracks. Then I heard Jaimes' siren wailing through the fog. I ran toward the clearing entrance, waving my arms, but the fog swallowed everything. I couldn't see her cruiser lights. The air was too thick. My lungs burned. I shouted her name, over and over, and then I saw her, standing between the trucks. Not Jaimes. A woman, pale, hair soaked and stringy, wearing a filthy Dawson Freight jacket way too big for her frame. Barefoot, head tilted. Mouth slightly open like she was listening for something I couldn't hear. And then, like mist blown by a sudden gust, she vanished. The CB radios all clicked at once. No more static. Just that same voice. Clearer now. We brought them back. I sprinted to my cruiser, slammed the door, locked it. Radioed dispatch again. No response. That's when Jaimes' car finally pulled in, lights cutting through the fog like blades. I ran to her, pounded on her window. She rolled it down, confused. What the hell happened? She asked. I looked back. The trucks were gone. No tire marks, no oil drips. Just an empty clearing and thick fog curling where they had been. Jaimes stared at me like I'd lost it. But then her radio hissed once and the knock started up again. 1, 2, 3, right behind us. Inside the cruiser. We turned around. The back seat was empty, but there was a wet handprint on the rear window, And written in the fogged glass slowly fading, "He's still driving." Jaime's didn't say a word the entire drive back to the station. She just kept glancing at the rearview mirror like she expected something to be sitting in the back seat. And I couldn't blame her. That handprint, it wasn't just a smudge. It was soaked into the window like whatever left it had oozed through the glass itself. And the writing, "He's still driving," that wasn't condensation or someone messing around. It was as clear and deliberate as if it had been written with a finger dipped in oil. When we pulled into the lot at the substation, both of us just sat in the car for a few minutes. Neither one of us wanted to be the first to open a door. Eventually, she broke the silence. "Tell me again what you saw." So I did. Every detail. The trucks, the smell, the knocked-out CBs, the empty cabs, the barefoot woman, the footprints inside the trailer, and the fact that all 3 trucks were registered to a freight company that hadn't existed since 2014. She didn't question it. Didn't tell me I was crazy. Just sat there staring ahead, lips tight. Then she said, "My dad used to work for Dawson." I turned toward her. "What?" "Back in the early 2000s. Long haul. Southeast routes mostly. He quit after something happened on a run through North Georgia. Never told us what. Just sold the rig and started working for a gravel plant. Wouldn't even talk about trucking after that." She paused. "Last year, before he passed, he kept saying weird things. He'd mutter to himself. Kept a scanner in the garage tuned to old CB frequencies. One night I found him out there, crying, whispering the same thing over and over. I asked what it was. She looked me dead in the eye and said, 'He's still driving.' My mouth went dry. We pulled the cruiser around back and went inside. I filed my report, but left out the handprint, the voice, the woman in the jacket. Hell, I almost left out the fact the trucks had vanished altogether, but Jaime's backed it up. Swore she'd seen them too. Said she'd vouch. Still, it didn't sit right. None of it did. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty cab with the tight stretched seatbelt. I could almost feel the presence of someone sitting there, breathing, watching. Around 2 a.m., I got up and pulled the dashcam footage from my cruiser, and that's when it got worse. The footage cut off just after I opened the first truck door. The last frame showed me leaning into the cab, then nothing but black static for 10 solid minutes. When the video returned, I was walking back toward the cruiser, alone, except, in one frame as I turned around, there was something behind me, something tall, misshapen, not fully formed, like a shadow still deciding what shape to take. I froze the frame, enhanced it. The shape was reflected faintly in the chrome tank of the second rig. Not a person, not exactly. Too long in the limbs, head tilted sideways like it was listening. I backed away from my laptop, stomach churning. At exactly 2:39 a.m., my CB radio, still mounted in my personal truck outside, crackled to life, on its own. I hadn't used it in years. 3 knocks, then silence. I couldn't stay in my house after that. The next morning, I called an old contact from the State Motor Carrier Compliance Division. Asked him to run VINs on those 3 trucks again, plus a full history of Dawson Freight. He called me back 2 hours later and said, "Man, whatever you're digging into, stop." Apparently, Dawson Freight didn't go under because of bankruptcy or mismanagement like we thought. They went dark after a string of disappearances. 4 drivers, all logged on the same route. All vanished within a 6-month window. No bodies, no wreckage. Just cold rigs found abandoned, keys in ignition, radios hissing static, and a faint knocking. I asked him if there were police reports. He said they were sealed. Why sealed? He didn't answer. Just said, they called it an internal security concern. That night I took a drive, back to the same gravel service road. I don't know why. I guess I wanted closure, or proof I hadn't lost my mind. But when I got there, the road was gone. No gravel, no clearing, just thick pine and kudzu as far as I could see, like the forest had grown over the whole damn stretch in a week. like it had never existed at all. Left the cruiser idling at the edge and stepped out with a flashlight. Every branch, every shadow looked like it wanted to reach out and pull me in. And in the stillness, I swear I heard it just beyond the trees, knock, 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 and then a low voice right beside my ear. Another route's open. I spun around. No one there. But parked behind my cruiser, silently, impossibly, was a single semi-truck. One I hadn't heard pull in, white cab. Dawson freight logo peeling off the side. The headlights clicked on by themselves, and through the windshield, I saw someone in the driver's seat, not moving, just sitting. Seatbelt. A height, eyes locked forward, face pale, and behind them, something else. A figure, looming in the cab's dark corner, thin, crooked, watching me. The CB inside my cruiser chirped, static then, time to ride. Aftermath. They never found that truck again, or the clearing. Jaime's put in for a transfer 6 days later. Moved. Clean across the country. We haven't spoken since I had the cruiser's CB removed. I don't drive back roads after dark anymore. And I don't answer calls about abandoned rigs, not unless someone else is already on scene. But I still monitor Channel 19 every few nights, just to see. And sometimes, when the sky's quiet and the mist rolls in thick over the trees, I hear it knock, 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 and a voice faint through the static. He's still driving. I've been with the Highway Patrol for going on 13 years now, and I've seen a lot of strange things along the back roads of Appalachia. Deer just standing still in the middle of the road like they're hypnotized. Cars flipped upside down without a single scratch on the driver. Once I even pulled over a guy who swore up and down that he saw his dead wife walking barefoot on the shoulder, near mile marker 222. But nothing, and I mean nothing, messed with my head like that stretch of highway up in the Unicoi Mountains, just off I-26 where the ridgeline curls like a snake, and the fog rolls in even on clear days. Locals call it Blackout Curve. That name used to make me roll my eyes. Not anymore. Let me back up a little. It was the week before Christmas, just after one of those early Appalachian snowfalls that melt by noon and leave everything soggy. I was working night shift solo unit, assigned to the rural mountain coverage. Most of the time that just meant catching the occasional drunk driver or helping tow trucks get to stranded folks in subcompacts with bald tires. That night, I started my shift around 7 p.m. and made my usual loop. Exit 32 to exit 44, double back, stop at the overlook to stretch my legs. That part of the mountain always feels heavy, like the trees are leaning just a little too far over the road, and the shadows hang longer than they should. By the time I reached mile marker 41, snow had started falling again. Big, soft flakes, like cotton drifting sideways in the wind. My radio crackled with static, then went quiet. That wasn't unusual. I've driven that pass 100 times, and there's always this 1/2 mile stretch where the signal drops and your ears pop like you're in a descending plane. But that night, it felt different. It was 10:47 p.m. when I rounded the curve. My headlights dimmed, visibly dimmed. I tapped the brake thinking maybe it was a battery issue, but the engine hummed fine. Then everything went black. Not dark. Black. No dash lights. No radio. No hum from the engine. Just this sudden, absolute nothing. Like I'd been swallowed whole. I must have blinked because when the lights snapped back on, my cruiser was parked on the shoulder, facing the opposite direction. I hadn't touched the wheel. The engine was idling like normal. The headlights were back at full brightness. But I was no longer in the curve. I was about 100 yards past it, angled against the guardrail like someone had repositioned me with a giant claw machine. I looked at the dash clock. 10:54 p.m. I'd lost 7 minutes. I didn't black out. I didn't fall asleep. I didn't crash. I just skipped 7 minutes like a broken DVD. My heart started pounding in that quiet, panicky way where you try to convince yourself you're still in control. I checked myself. No injuries, no blood, no disorientation. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The air smelled like wet pine and something else I couldn't place, like warm electronics and ozone, the kind of smell that hangs in the air after lightning strikes a transformer. The road was empty. No cars, no animals, not even wind. That silence got to me. You don't realize how loud a mountain is until it suddenly shuts up. No frogs, no crickets, not even the distant yip of coyotes. I circled the cruiser with my flashlight, tires intact, no dents, no debris on the road. Everything looked normal until I got back in. I reached for the gear shift, glanced in the rearview mirror, and froze. There was a handprint on the inside of the glass, palm out. 5 long fingers, foggy, like someone had breathed on the mirror from the back seat and pressed their hand there. The cruiser's rear cage was intact, doors still locked. Nothing in the back but a folded blanket and a box of emergency flares. I turned around and checked it myself. Empty, but the print stayed. I didn't radio it in right away. What was I gonna say? Hey, dispatch, I lost 7 minutes of time and now there's a ghost in my back seat? No way. I wiped the glass, turned the heat up, and kept driving. I should have gone straight home, or better yet, straight to the station. But curiosity got the better of me. I turned around and drove back toward the curve. The moment I re-entered that blackout stretch, my headlights dimmed again. But this time, just slightly. The engine didn't cut. The dash stayed lit. But the air got thick in my lungs like I'd stepped into a sauna. That smell came back, stronger now. Burnt plastic and static. I slowed to a crawl, and then I saw it. A figure, standing just off the shoulder. Male, I think. Wearing what looked like a brown jacket or uniform. Could have been a trucker or maybe another patrol officer. Hard to tell. His face was turned away and his outline blurred with the fog. I rolled down my window. Hey, you all right? No response. No movement. I inched forward. The figure turned. But where a face should have been, there was only darkness, not a shadow, not hidden features. Just this flat black void, like someone had erased the face entirely. I slammed the cruiser into reverse, hard in my throat, and whipped the wheel around hard. But when I glanced in the mirror, there was nothing there. No figure, no fog, just a clean, empty stretch of 2-lane blacktop winding around the side of the ridge. I drove home that night and didn't sleep. I kept checking the mirror, my front door, the security camera feed on my porch. The next morning, I pulled the cruiser dashcam footage, and here's the part I can't explain. When I scrubbed through the timeline, those 7 minutes weren't missing. They were just blank. A still image of the road. Like the camera froze. But right at the end, at 10:54, something flickers into frame. Just a second or two. A blurry shape outside the passenger window. Pale, angular, pressed right up against the glass like it's looking in, and then gone. I paused it on the exact frame and brightened the image. I wish I hadn't, because reflected, in the window, wasn't my passenger seat. It was the back seat, and sitting there was me. Not a reflection, not a trick of light. A second version of me, pale, expressionless, staring forward, and just behind him, another figure. That same blurred thing I saw on the roadside, only this time it was leaning forward, reaching out, and its hand was pressed against the inside of the glass, just like the print I wiped away. That's where I stopped watching. I haven't driven that curve since. I reroute every patrol to avoid it. But sometimes, late at night, I'll be parked on the side of the highway filling out a report, and I'll hear something over the cruiser's radio, not static, not chatter, just silence and breathing. And once, I swear on my badge, I heard a voice say my name, like it was sitting just behind me. For a couple of weeks after that night, I avoided even talking about Blackout Curve. Didn't report it, didn't mention it to my shift partner. I just told dispatch I was getting intermittent static near mile 41 and logged it as a communication dead zone, which, to be fair, it always had been. But I couldn't stop thinking about the handprint, or that thing in the video. That second me. I kept going back to that freeze frame on the dash cam footage. I had it saved to a USB drive. I didn't even want to upload it to a computer in case someone at the department found it. I told myself I'd imagined the shape in the back seat. Maybe it was a shadow, a trick of the glass, but the handprint. I felt it that night. I wiped it off with my own glove. It was warm. It didn't feel like a trick. The problem is, when something like that happens, something outside your logical reach, you start seeing patterns. You start noticing little things and wondering if they're connected. And that's where I lost grip of what was real. It started with the patrol logs. One night I was going over my shift notes from the previous week, dates, times, mile markers. I always logged everything by hand in a little black notebook I kept in the glove box. But when I flipped to last Thursday's entry, the night of the blackout, there was already a log written in my handwriting, only it wasn't mine. It was neater, tighter. Same pen, same ink, but every detail was slightly off. Same date, same time, same location. But the entry said I never stopped. It said I passed through blackout curve with no incidents and logged my next checkpoint at mile marker 46. Even creepier, the note ended with a signature, my signature. But I didn't write it. I took that notebook inside and locked it in a drawer. Didn't touch it for 2 days. Then I started noticing other things. One morning I went out to my cruiser, opened the door, and paused. The driver's seat was adjusted, set farther back, mirrors tilted, radio volume higher than I leave it. The cabin smelled faintly of cigarette, smoke. I haven't smoked in 5 years. When I checked the odometer, there were 4 extra miles that weren't on my log. Still no signs of forced entry. Still no camera footage from my house. Then came the dream. It was vivid. Too vivid. I was driving the same stretch of highway near the mountain. No radio, just the hum of tires and that blue haze of twilight bleeding over the ridgeline. Then the curve came into view. As I approached, I saw flashing lights, red and blue, up ahead. A patrol car. Mine. Parked sideways across the lane. I got out, heart hammering, and walked toward it. And when I looked through the windshield, I was sitting in the driver's seat. Mouth open, eyes wide, dead, only I wasn't alone. In the passenger seat was the same shadowed figure, head cocked, hand resting on my shoulder like it belonged there. That's when I woke up, in my cruiser. Not in bed, not in my house, in my cruiser, parked near the edge of the overlook, just a few hundred yards past blackout curve. The keys were still in the ignition. Clock read 3:12 a.m. I had no memory of driving out there. No call from dispatch, no texts, no caffeine pills or sleep meds in my system. Just me, my cruiser, and that familiar electric burnt smell lingering in the vents. That was the night I finally told someone. There's an older trooper named Carson. He's one of those guys that's been around so long nobody questions what he says. 6'3", mustache like a push broom. Talks like he's been chewing gravel since '78. I caught him in the break room and just blurted it out. I expected a laugh, or worse, a look. Instead, Carson sipped his coffee and nodded like I'd told him my tire pressure was low. Yeah, he said. You saw him. I blinked. Saw who? He looked around to make sure we were alone. The other you. I stared at him, waiting for the joke, but he was dead serious. He said, "Blackout curve's been like that since I joined. We don't put it in the reports, but everybody's got a story. Some lose a few minutes, some come back with their shirts buttoned wrong. I know one guy who came back with a healed scar like it had been reversed. But the worst ones?" He leaned in. "They see themselves." I asked what that meant. He didn't explain much, just said, "Whatever's out there, it copies, not perfect, just enough, long enough." Long enough for what? I asked. Carson didn't answer. He just walked out and never brought it up again. After that, I took time off. burned sick leave, stayed home, disconnected the dash cam. I told myself if I just stayed away from the mountain, it'd all go away. But one night, about a month later, I got a call from dispatch. Late. 1:22 a.m. A single vehicle accident near mile 41 blackout curve. I told them I wasn't cleared for patrol, but they said I'd already responded, that my unit was already on site. That's when I looked out the window and saw the cruiser wasn't in the driveway. I ran out in my socks, heart racing, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it got towed. Maybe Carson had borrowed it. I called dispatch. The voice on the other end was calm. "You already called this in," she said. "You're the responding officer." I told her no, I was home, I'd been asleep, and that's when she got quiet. Then said, "But I'm looking at your vehicle GPS right now. You're parked at mile 41. Then the line went dead. I grabbed my keys, my spare keys, and took my wife's truck. The mountain pass was dead quiet. Road slick. Fog clinging low like smoke from a fire that never burned. And then I saw it, my cruiser, parked just past the curve, headlights off, driver's door open. I pulled over, flashlight in hand, and approached. The inside was empty. Except, for one thing, pinned to the steering wheel with a paperclip like some kind of sick office memo, was a photo, a printout. Black and white, of me, asleep, in my bed. Time stamped 12:03 a.m. that same night, taken from inside my bedroom. I left the force a month later. I couldn't explain what happened, and I didn't try. I just signed the papers, turned in my badge, and walked away. But every now and then, when I'm driving late at night, even out here in the flatlands, I'll glance in the rear view and think I see something in the back seat. Not a person, not quite, just a shape. And sometimes, if I stare too, I see my own eyes staring back, but they're not mine.